Hey y'all, it's Quana back again with another review. Good to see you guys. I apologize. I am 2 days late in making my review, but I wanted to wait till we had some good sunlight so that everything could be looking nice and crisp. And I also had to kind of go back and do a little research to really talk about this episode the way that God intended me to. So, do me a favor, sit down, relax, because we're going to do a quick little recap of the night, and then I'm going to go all in on this episode. Was it low key tripping? Low key tripping, yeah. It was a good episode, and I've got some unpopular opinions. My first unpopular opinion is it was actually a necessary episode to get this episode of Molly and her POV without Issa, because it's going to really, I think, help us uncover some things and really dig into what the show is actually attempting to do. So, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe at any point in time. When you hear me say something that you agree with, do me a favor and hit a like. It's just like in church, when the pastor says something good, you say amen, pastor. That's what the thumbs up does for me. It lets me know, amen, I agree with you. So, okay, we're gonna child, I had to take notes. I had to take notes. This was episode was it was a lot, and some unexpected things happened, and I was just like, oh, I didn't think that I would like this episode because I have not been on the Molly train right now, but I was really down for this episode, and kudos to Jay Ellis, who I think did a great job directing this episode. Kudos to the costume staff, because Molly looked banging the entire episode. If I had a body like that, those bathing suits and outfits, oh my gosh, you wouldn't be able to tell me nothing. I'm gonna get right. We over here doing some intermittent fasting. We trying to get things together. And I got my little Juneteenth shirt. Maybe by Juneteenth I'll be down a couple of pounds. So episode picks up exactly where last week's episode ended up, with Issa arriving to the Ethiopian restaurant, and she sees Molly, and she's just like, you know what? I can't handle this today. And so she bounces. Well, lo and behold, we find out that actually Molly saw her show up, and she is already in her mind fixating like, no, this chick ain't. She don't say chick. She said the other word, and she really is like, oh, I got time today. And you can really tell she's giving off that vibe energy, like she's gonna have words for Issa if she walks to the door. So she was already fixing her mouth to have negative thoughts. Well, when she sees that Issa doesn't come in, she has the nerve to be offended. Petty, petty. But we're going to continue. So she goes back to the house, and Andrew's there. They're getting ready for this trip that they're about to take to Mexico and go hang out with his brother. And she tells, him what happened with Issa. And it's clear he is biting his tongue. He's sticking by that man code of, that's you and your friend. I'll chime in if you want me to, but if not, I'm gonna be over here hold my peace. And you could tell by his face that he really was not trying to feel her little attitude of like, cut her a break, like you're the one who messed up this girl's block party, and that was really petty of you. But I digress. He tries to give her support and whatever, and they're talking about the trip. They're talking about where they're going to go and things like that. And we find out, okay, they're going to take the trip to Mexico. All right, so then Molly goes to work. Well, she finds out that she's got to go into work because she has a meeting that morning, and then she's going to have to like hightail it over to the airport. Now, I thought this was interesting because what we find out later is that she did not know about the meeting. The meeting was, I guess, last minute, but it really wasn't last minute. Somebody, her receptionist or her secretary, forgot to tell her about the meeting. However, she probably would have already had her plans for her trip anyway. And I don't know if she's high enough up in the company that she would have been able to tell them. And obviously, they planned the meeting, and I'm sure she put in her week's notice, or her notification, letting them know I'm sure she put in her notification. So I am sure that they knew that she was supposed to be out of office. So really taking it out on her receptionist. And I don't know if this was a meeting with like some outside clients that they wouldn't have known, but certainly it sounded like other individuals in the office were up to date with what was going on. So it was already on the books. And it just kind of felt like, Anyway, the girl comes in. She's like, why didn't you tell me about this meeting? She's like, oh, I found, he told me about it, but he sent me an email, and we've had so much stuff going on that I got overwhelmed and I forgot about it, which happens. People are human. And she apologizes, and Molly completely shames her. And she was right to take her to task, but the tone that she took and the disrespect that she had. And then the young lady apologized, and all she fixed her mouth to say was, okay, where's the brief? And it showed me in that moment, and I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but that Molly is really not good at accepting other people's apologies. She expects it, but she doesn't accept it. And so we're gonna talk about that because it's a problem. So anyway, they finally go to the airport. She races to the airport, and we see her board the plane. Shout out to Jay Ellis's mama, who got to play the little flight attendant at the gate or whatever. They get on the plane, and they're ready to take up, and they're ready to live it up. You know, they're asking for the little champagne, the little drinks. They want the little blanket. Guess who's sitting right across from them over in, what are they, business economy class or something like that? Is Kim Fields. Yes, Regine herself, the ultimate diva, Tootie from, Facts of Life. And it was so good to see her. And she playing a character who just divorced her husband, and she's going to go get her Stella Groove back on. And then Molly and Andrew decide they're gonna like halfway join the Mile High Club, because she's like, I got something for you when you get to Mexico. He's like, I got something for you too. He's like, well, I can give you something right now. And then he slips his hand down in her drawers, and I was like, y'all not even like in the back of the plane. Y'all like right there near the partition from what it looked like. It didn't look like there was somebody sitting in front of them, and I was like, y'all living up dangerously. That was that what we doing? But they did all that before COVID-19, because I know we wouldn't be doing that right now, because there's too many germs out here in these streets. So anyway, they get to Mexico, and we meet his brother Victor and his wife. I can't remember her name, but off the gate, his wife is like, oh my gosh, Andrew, you didn't tell me your girlfriend was a 10, and she's so gorgeous, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go work out extra because I'm gonna feel like embarrassed to be seen around her. She was doing the most. And then Victor, you could always tell, and Andrew kind of told us that his brother, was super anal, probably a whole, to me, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, I actually looked at it as he is the male version of Molly. And we're going to go back through the previous episodes to talk about why I say that, but he was really the male version of Molly. So he's the kind of person, he has planned this whole trip down to the T. He has planned not just for some R&R, but for some workouts and some adventure. And, they're just like, they want to relax. They want to have a good time. So they go back to, they're like, well, let us go unpack and relax. Give us an hour. We'll come meet you. Well, the hour flies by, because when they get up to the hotel room, they start pulling out their little surprises for each other. Molly pulls out some little sexy lingerie with some garters, and it's like barely there bra. And Andrew done went to Adam and Eve and pulled out like beads and balls and rabbits and everything else, and he trying to give Molly a good time down in Mexico, child. And I was like, he trying to put that work in. I don't know what he feels like he's got to do to keep this good black woman, but he is about to put in that work. And she's like, oh. So they basically start saying like how they want to find out more about each other and really explore each other's sexuality. So he's like, well, I like it when you kind of take charge. And she was like, oh, okay, really? Well, let's go out to the balcony, because I liked what you did on the plane, and I can like almost getting caught. And so then they go out to the balcony and let the whole world, the heavens, see their glory or whatever. And he put it in, they passed out. They missed the whole night. So the next day they get up at the butt crack of dawn. I am not getting up at the butt crack of dawn on vacation. I take that back. Let me stop lying, because there have been some times I have gotten up early because I wanted to experience something, but I wouldn't be going trying to do a hike at that. That's not That's not what we do. Vacation is for lying on the beach and drinking a cocktail and enjoying the sand and having a good time and relaxing. But anyhow, so they're gonna hike up 3 miles up this mountain, and it ends up being a beautiful view. But who do they run to on their way down the mountain? It's Kim Fields, and she is enjoying herself, and she's like, it's day four, day four. So they had been there, I guess, she says day four, and I don't, they were on the same flight together, so they had actually been there for a lot longer, and we just didn't see all of the events that they had done up until that moment. So anyway, ends up being a beautiful view, and then they get to the top, and I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. Now how are we getting down? Well, they end up zip lining down the mountain, and I have done zip lining before, and it is fun. But let me tell you, as a big girl, that little harness was not comfortable. Then my tail is sitting there, and I'm ziplining, and this had to have been, was I with a child? No, 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 no. I couldn't have been with a child because this was before I think we had our first kid. And my big tail, I was spinning. I swear every time I got to from one top to the bottom, I was landing but first. I don't know if you have that happened. That's just me, my experience. Maybe I need to research. Maybe there was something faulty that I don't know about. But I promise you, every time I would get to the bottom, I would be like going backwards, and I just my thing would be swinging, and I would be just sliding backwards. I don't understand it, but Yvonne, Molly, she's small, so that she was going feet first, and they had a good time. Okay, so later on, they're at the hotel, they're getting changed, they're getting ready to go out, and I guess they're talking a little bit more about the whole Issa situation and about how Victor is, and how, even Andrew was like, my brother, he is super anal. And she's like, yeah, but I had a really good time. Like, I was surprised. I actually enjoyed myself. And so things are going well. And then who puts in a call but Nathan? And Nathan puts in a call, and he's like, where's the garage door opener? And who do you hear in the background? You hear Miss Issa D, Miss Issa Rae herself, Miss Issa D. And she's in the background. They're hanging out and they're having a good time. And Andrew doesn't seem fazed by this. He tells the old boy where the control is, and they go on about their business. Well, who has something to say but Molly? Oh, there goes Issa being messy. Well, pump the brakes. Pause. Why is that messy? She is a grown woman. She's not in a relationship. Nathan is not dating anyone. Why would them hanging out, even if she wanted to get her boots knocked, or what have you from Nathan, even if she decided to say to Nathan, okay, I don't want to do a relationship with you, but we can do this. Why would that be wrong or messy of her? Like, judgmental much, and we're going to think about that. But anyhow, Andrew checks her, and he was like, you think all this bad about Nathan, but Nathan was going through some stuff. He really didn't just ghost her like that. He had some stuff going on with him, and it was severe. It was serious mental stuff. And she was like, oh, well, I guess I thought wrong about him. And I'm going to talk about the fact that I think that she only accepted that because it was coming from Andrew. If Lisa had told her that, I don't think she would have accepted that or even tried to listen. So it's kind of sad that the only reason why she is now accepting of that Nathan, really has severe issues was because Andrew. But we're going to talk about that later. So anyway, later on, they decide they're going to get into a little freaky deaky or whatever. And so she comes out the bathroom with her little lingerie on. And then she's like, oh, what we about to do is, you's about to toss my salad. Y'all, I died. I had to, and luckily I was watching it on my laptop. I had to pause the episode and be like, say what? What? I know the show has pushed some things before, but say what? Let me put the let me let me hit the 10-second rewind again and figure out if she meant what she said. She meant what she said because she got on old boy and she spread those cheeks, and I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, so I'm gonna assume Andrew is serious about her, because do people just be out in these streets with like people that you don't know that you're gonna end up with? I don't know that I want to know the answer to that, but y'all can comment down below and tell me what you thought. Anyway, next day they're hanging out in the pool, and now we have encountered a moment of uncomfortableness in the relationship of Andrew and Molly being an interracial couple, which is racism down in Mexico. That is literally what I read on the paper, is racism in Mexico. So they're hanging out in the pool. Somebody goes by and splashes old girl, Victor's wife in the eye, and I guess she has a contact in or whatever. And so Molly is like, I'll go get you a towel. So she goes to get a towel. She walks up. At the moment that she walks up, there's a couple there. They're getting their towels. The young lady who is the towel lady says, I need to see your room key so I can give you a towel. She's like, but you didn't ask the people for a room key. She's just like looking like, I'm not sure about that, but I need to see everyone's room key. And from the angle of the show, we don't really see if she asked the other couple for a room key or not. And it could have even been I would think if they had been there multiple times and it was not the first time they had been to the pool, maybe she had seen them before. There's a lot of things that it could be, and not to excuse racism, because we've all had those experiences where it's like blatantly you're the one being followed, or you're the one who is being asked if you have money or things like that. But in this instance, that's a pretty standard policy that, yes, some people, depending on who it's there, you might get the hookup and they might be like, oh, it's okay, we trust you. Or you might get people who are like, I don't know, I'm going to do my job. But everyone has times like that. Like I have times in my job as a teacher where it's like, I'm that teacher who I'm going to follow the rules because I don't think I can get away with certain things. And kids might get mad at that and be like, oh, you're just being mean. And it's like, I'm not being mean or bullying or anything. I just don't want to lose my job because I got 2 kids. So I felt bad for the girl, but Molly snaps. Victor comes by. He shows his room key because he has his with him. She gets the towel. She snatches it. She takes it over to old girl. And then they get into a conversation about what happened. And Victor calls himself playing devil's advocate. And then this is the moment where, sometimes you just got to let people say their piece. And it's not to say you can't challenge their beliefs, but he should understand that as a black woman, she has probably faced not just implicit biases, but explicit racism. And so certain things are going to be triggering, even if that's not that particular situation. It doesn't excuse or erase people's very real lived experiences. And he calls himself trying to play devil's advocate, and Molly calls him out on his bull, and she's just like, oh, well, you guys half the time don't even know if you are going to be, quote unquote, you're only people of color when it's convenient. And it's this whole explosive situation. Victor comes out of pocket, and then Molly has to be like, Andrew, you need to check your brother. And I gasp because Molly and Andrew are not that serious. Like, he hadn't put a ring on it. And it was an important moment to see if he was going to say something to his brother, but at the same time, she was really taking a risk, because that could have really been the end of her relationship, because people's family is family, and he's bringing you to his family to meet his family, so you must be pretty important. He must be trying to make things work. And then for you to get into it with his brother, in most cases, even if he disagrees with his brother, he's gonna try to, that's his brother for life. You might not be his boo thing for life. So I was really shocked that they even went there. Eventually they go back to the hotel room and they kind of talk some things out. She goes to sleep. They're not touching. Wakes up the next day. He brings her a drink. She's shocked that he's still there. And this is the first time that somebody has shown, other than Issa, I think, who's shown themselves like steady rock, who's going to be there for her. And so she's talking to him, and she's just uncovering the fact that maybe she holds on to things a little too tightly, and maybe she doesn't know how to let things go. And so the next thing we see is her on the beach, and she's placing a good call to Dr. Rhonda, talking about, I need to see you. Maybe I need to talk through some things. Well, eventually they go home, and who do they see at the airport? But they see Lawrence, which I thought was a nice little bookend, because it's Jay Ellis, and then his mom played the stewardess at the beginning, so I thought that was really, really cute. And he's coming back from San Francisco, and so she does this little Full House joke that does not go over well. And he they leave, and then the last thing we see is him putting in a phone call and telling someone he has to see them, and that's the end. Now, quick fast promo for next week shows that he is at a bar and he is waiting for someone, and the person who arrives is Issa, and Issa's like, well, you wanted to talk to me. And I'm going to tell you my prediction. I was actually just going to do a response, but I'm going to tell you my prediction for next week's episode. My prediction for next week's episode is, a lot of people are predicting he wants to get back with Issa. I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to say, because something I have not heard people say is, I think that he might have been having doubts about Condola 2 or 3 episodes ago when he was trying to talk to Issa, and then he tried to hit Issa up or whatever, and then Issa didn't hit him up again, and then he and Condola broke up after the whole little thing, and then Condola showed up at at Issa's block party or whatever and said she broke up with Lawrence, and everyone is suspecting that maybe he's going to tell Issa that he's in love with her again. I am wondering if somehow between the block party and now, if he's gotten back together with Condola, and what he's going to tell her is that he proposed to Condola and he wanted to tell her first so she doesn't find out from someone else. Now, it could be way wrong, and it could be where she's going to, he's going to say he is interested in her again, he's in love with her, and maybe we're going to have a whole like love triangle with like Lawrence and Nathan, or maybe we won't. Maybe she'll just get back with Lawrence, but what if he is trying to get back with Condola and got engaged with Condola, and that would maybe part of what he was doing in San Francisco. I don't know. So I kind of suspect maybe we haven't seen the end of Condola. I don't think. But anyway, so that's my prediction. Now let's get into some of the talking points of this episode, okay? So I thought it was a good episode. A lot of people are so anti-Molly that they just were like, this episode was trash and it was boring. And I was like, no. If you're saying the episode was boring, it is merely because you have an attitude with Molly. Because there was like wall-to-wall things happening, right? Like we needed to see that she saw Issa in that first scene. We needed to kind of see her interact with old girl at her job to kind of see the state of mind that she's in. We needed to see those moments with her and Andrew talking about the whole Issa situation, and him being able to like kind of calm her down and check her and give her some advice in a way that she would receive it. And not that we need to see him eating the groceries, but that was just funny. That was just funny to see. So, those scenes were just funny. And we needed to see a Black woman living her best life in Mexico. I mean, she looked gorgeous the whole entire episode. So you can't take that away from it all. So I don't think the episode was boring. I think people who are saying it was boring are just lying to themselves. Now, was it my favorite episode for the season? No, of course not. Again, the block party was the best episode of the season. But I don't think it was as trash as people are making it out to be. I think people are just so anti-Molly right now, and they're forgetting Molly is a necessary character for this show, because the show is about Issa, but also Molly. Like, Molly has become the secondary character, so it was necessary. We needed to follow her, just like we needed to follow Issa last week. And I don't think if you enjoyed last week's episode and Issa's solo, experiences, this was just in many ways just as comical and just as triggering in some ways, if not more so. So those things were necessary. All right, so here are my thoughts. So between Sunday night and today, I have binge watched all of season 1 because I had some thoughts. The first thought that I was having was when Molly shows herself and shows us her pettiness in the Ethiopian restaurant, which it was a nice little nod to episode 1, because that's the first place that we saw them hang out at in episode 1. So it was a nice nod to that, and it was the same lady. So I don't know if she works there in real life or she's an actress, but it was the same lady who served them in episode 1. We needed to see that. We needed to see that Molly is the type of person, she really struggles with accepting apologies. She feels as though she is always the one owed an apology, and she feels like she's always the victim. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. And we needed to see that again. We need to be reminded of that again, because I don't think that when you think about the format of the show, right, and you think about what the show is trying to do, it would be naive of us to get on this whole like pedestal of thinking like Molly versus Issa, Molly versus Issa, and siding with Issa. And I think, yes, we want to side with Issa, but I don't think that's not what the creators of the show are trying to do, right? That doesn't make sense because these are all people who are friends. And I don't think that's the narrative that they want to tell. Instead, I think it's about seeing growth. And we've seen Issa grow, but we haven't really had the chance to see Molly's growth in the same way. We've seen nuggets of it, but she still hasn't grown. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. So going back into season one, we saw Molly go through a slew of guys trying to find the one. There was Chris. I think Chris was the one who was played by Jadena. You had the Arab guy that we never saw who ends up ghosting her in episode one. There was another guy in between him and Jadena. Then there was Jared, of course. And we saw Jared again at the Graveyard Theater showing of Last Dragon in season 3. And so we see Molly kind of going on and doing, living her best life, but making several mistakes with these guys, which is being thirsty, jumping into long-term kind of modes of where she was like inviting guys to leave clothes at her house, or she was just putting pressure on them to make a commitment to her even after just a couple of dates, and she hadn't really learned from that. So even up to the point at the beginning of this season, she was still trying to make some of those same moves with Andrew, and Issa was the one who gave her the advice of like not doing that stuff, of not acting the way that she did before. And it did help because very early on she was trying to jump into, and Andrew was still dating other women, and they hadn't had a conversation about what they were going to be. And so she was doing the same thing of assuming without sitting down and saying, you know what, let's have a conversation about our relationship and what it's going to be, because I'm thinking it's one thing, but you might be thinking it's something else, and let's get on the same wavelength. So Issa really helped her and gave her good advice, and that's the only reason why her relationship with Andrew is really even working at this point. And it wasn't that Issa didn't have faith in her. It was, you've already done this. This was season 1 Molly. Why are you trying to recreate and do season 1 Molly again? And then we get to the scene with her and the girl at the law firm, which I can't think of her name, but the receptionist. Well, in many ways, it was almost like the whole Rashida incident from season 1, where here you have her working with this other black woman, and instead of really, and she tried to, I think that first couple of episodes with Rashida, like try to say, girl, you might be doing a bit much, but it really didn't, it felt disingenuous, and I think Rashida could tell. And then what happened with Rashida, she got tasked embarrassingly in front of the partners, and Molly just kind of walked by and act like she didn't see what was going on. And rather than pull her to the side and say, okay, I know you didn't want me to say anything before, but the partners came to me and said this. She didn't do that. She wasn't really looking out for her. And so in this instance, she's really disingenuous with this receptionist because she is belittling her. And then when the girl goes out of her way to apologize, all she says is okay. All she says is okay. She does not say, I accept your apology. And we needed to see that. We need to see that Molly is someone who does not accept apologies very well. All she says is okay, go get me the brief. Right? Now, no, she shouldn't have, like, it didn't need a diatribe or whatever, but you just blanked on this girl. She was the professional and said, you know what, I apologize. It was my mistake. It will not happen again. And she could have just said, okay, thank you for that. Here's the things that I need to get prepared, or what have. She did not do anything to deaden the tone and the tension in the office. All right, so then there's that. So then we get to the situation with Victor and Molly. And I said that I felt like Victor is Molly because Molly in many ways is super anal. She's a woman who makes lists. She's a woman who has high ideals about people, and his cost her plenty. It cost her Jared in season 1, where she wanted to say, because this guy who had a very similar sexual experience that she had, she viewed her experience as okay and acceptable and his not. And so she lost the guy that was really trying to be there for her and was there for her and was trying to like not just use her. And that's a, part of her personality. Is she's someone who judges people all the time, and I feel like that is what Victor is as well. He's someone who makes lists, he plans, and if you don't fit into this cookie cutter box, he's going to kind of write you off. And so here it is, Molly was the one causing tension on his nice little relaxing trip, so he was going to take her there. Now, Molly, we don't have all the ins and outs, and they intentionally did not show us, whether the girl actually asked the white couple for the key card, because they want us to see, that there are two sides, two situations, and with racism, and racism can be implicit, it can be explicit, but they were going to have this conversation because the way that they walk through the world is very different. The way that Asian Americans walk through the world is very different than the way Black Americans walk through the world, and that is just facts. And it's not that they don't both experience racism, they do, but it oftentimes is very different. And the fact that there is a selling of like a good minority script that America sells about Asian people that is never sold about Black people. You can be the good, smart, quiet Asian model minority figure, but then Black people never get to be assumed to be the model minority. You have one-offs or whatever. So those are issues that Andrew and Molly are going to come up against, and it was necessary for us to see how they would work through those together, and that Andrew would be supporting of her. So we definitely see that he's a good man. Now it just goes to show whether or not Molly is going to end up sabotaging their relationship going forward. So my unpopular opinion is that Molly really has not changed. And I went back to season 1, and what I noticed was the episode where Issa was having the fundraiser was almost exactly like the Black Party episode. It was like they took the same script and they could have just flipped it, because here they were doing fine, they were having a good time. At that point there was very little tension in the relationship, and then here comes Molly saying, hey, I ran into this girl that we used to know, Crystal, back in the dorm, our RA, and she used to be hoeing it down, but now she has on this path of where she wants to value herself and not give up her values by hoeing for everyone, and she's been going to a shrink. And Issa wasn't initially just like saying, oh girl, that's you need to go do that. She was literally just like, oh, well, did she say it worked for her? Like, is that something that, and I almost got the sense of like Issa was even thinking for herself, like if she had a job that could afford good benefits, maybe she would go talk to someone as well. And she kind of, suggested that maybe Molly should do the same thing. And Molly took it to a whole nother place. She took it up to like level 365. And it was right here. And they were at Issa's place of business. And so she kind of snaps at Issa, like hardcore snaps. And even when Issa tries to like say, well, girl, don't, it's fine. I was just saying that and don't pay me any mind or what have you. Molly doesn't forgive her, and she snaps on oh boy, who was there at her job that she works with. Like, it was just, the whole night was tense, and she was really out of pocket. And then her and Issa get into it, and it took until the episode where they went out of town with Kelly and Tiffany for her to kind of like fix things with Issa. But again, just like Issa said, Issa had to go to her, and she's trying to like, dance it out and smooth it out and say, girl, make peace with everything or what have you. And she literally apologized to Molly in the car. And all Molly said was, I'm in this car at 2:00 in the morning driving you, aren't I? Again, she's someone who cannot accept an apology, and she can't give an apology, so she never apologizes for her side of the argument. This is something that Molly really needs to work through in therapy, and I hope that we're on some type of redemption arc, because what I noticed all throughout season 1 is Issa is messy. I'm not going to say, some of us in the chats and whatnot have been really hard on Molly. Issa is messy. Issa is selfish. And there have been several times this season and that first season even, where Issa was all in her own little world, texting when Molly was trying to talk to her and being an inconsiderate friend. And she needs to own that crap. She legit 100% does. I'm not going to give her any slack on that unpopular opinion. So Issa needs to do better and be a better friend. But Molly is crazy judgmental. I mean, crazy judgmental. I mean, she was, she's, first of all, she's judging all of these guys that she's dating, and it's not to say women can't say have standards. They can have standards, but look, you literally judged Jared for the same crap that you did. How that work? Hypocritical much? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, she really has that, and Issa was the one who was like, yeah, but you did the same thing. So like, maybe why can't he just be a black man who, in this new age world that we're living in, he had that experience. He said he was drunk. He said it was one time, and he noticed. He knew immediately. Oh no, this wasn't for me, and never did it again. And he felt safe enough with you to tell you that. Like, you judged him, and then you let him go, and he was a good guy. And somebody else got the fruit of, his goodness. So now we see he has a woman now. So Molly is just crazy judgmental. She doesn't let stuff go, and that's the kind of stuff she really needs to work through, because it's really going to be a hindrance in her relationship with Andrew. And I think if Andrew was not successful at his job, she definitely would. We know right now she would not be checking for him one iota. And so it just goes to show you that, like, you definitely need to take a look in the mirror. I'm starting, man. You need to look in the mirror and look at yourself and judge more wisely. So I thought this was a necessary episode. I can't wait to see what happens. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought about the episode, and please, if I said anything that you agree with, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because I need you to come and join me, and let's just have some good tea and some good chatting together. So until next time, toodles.